That's a disconnect to me. If you don't trust that the government's going to act fairly, you don't trust them to have a fair tax system, if you don't trust them to install a traffic light on a corner where it's needed, how can you trust them with life and death? Other reasons, well, it's unfair. We know that capital punishment is instituted in a manner that is often racist and that is often classist. What I mean by that is a rich person's never been executed in this country. And do we really believe that no rich person has ever committed a capital crime? Do we really believe that? And then there's the whole thing about it being arbitrary and capricious. What do I mean by that? Well, right here in West Virginia, you don't have capital punishment, but right across the border in Kentucky, you do. So if somebody's shot on the border and falls over, killed in Kentucky, or the perpetrator trips and falls into Kentucky and is arrested, faces capital punishment. If they trip and fall the other way in West Virginia, they don't. Or if somebody commits a murder 1 minute before their 18th birthday, they can't be executed. But if they commit the same murder 1 minute after their 18th birthday, they can. Well, you know, you've got to draw the line somewhere, but somehow it's different when it's a matter of life and death. And then, of course, there are religious and ethical reasons. They're people who just believe it's plain wrong. I think that the only way we'll finally be rid of capital punishment is when we come to view it as a human rights abuse. You know, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was signed onto by the United States on December 10, 1948. If you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I happen to have my little booklet here, the first two paragraphs, the first two articles, are general statements about human worth. Article 3 is the first articulation of a specific right. And it starts, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Everyone has the right to life. The very first article in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is everybody having the right to life. Now, we can argue about when life starts, but there is no doubt that people on death row facing execution are alive. No one's going to argue with that. And once people come to see, as they have in most of Western Europe, that executing people is a human rights abuse, it will be very difficult for politicians to argue whenever there's a horrific murder in order to gain a few points in the polls that we should execute this horrible person. I think we also have to put the death penalty within a broader context. One of the reasons we're told to support the death penalty is that it will make us safer. The idea that somehow if we execute a couple of hundred people every year, that somehow we'll be safer. We always have to beware of those who counsel us to give up our freedoms in order to increase our security, in order to protect ourselves. What I say is don't fall for the freedom versus security trap. Attack the assumption. Where's the proof that giving up our freedom will increase our security? History teaches us that we'll be less free, but not that we'll be more secure. In fact, we'll come to live in fear of our own security forces. All you have to do is ask the people in Ferguson, Missouri about that. But I want to close with a more personal argument. one that's often not addressed when people are talking about capital punishment. Let me ask you a question. How many people in the United States are on death row today? Does anybody in the audience know the answer? Yeah? 20,000. It's actually more like 3,000, 3,500, okay? Okay? Well, here's another question. How many children in the United States have an immediate family member on death row? I'm sure no one knows the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. Nobody seems to be even asking that question. How many people in the United States today were children when family members were executed? We don't know the answer to those questions. The problem with executions is that each execution creates a new circle of victims. That is, the family members of those killed. Now, proponents of the death penalty like to say, well, what about the family members of those murdered? Well, what does one have to do with the other? How does creating a new circle of victims help the family members of the people who were killed? That kind of argument really demonstrates a kind of callous vengefulness. It's actually part of the problem, not the solution. So the question I want to leave you with tonight before we go into the question and answer period, and I hope I provided you with enough controversial questions or thoughts so that I will get some provocative questions, is who is going to speak for the children of those who are executed or face execution? Because those children can't speak for themselves. So I want to end with the hope here tonight that you will join me in being the people who speak up for those children. Thank you.